个就变成这个就好，在这 recording， 看到吗？这才是 recording。OK， 这开了。
Thank you. It's nothing worse than hearing your bio. Sitting there like, I don't really sound that great, but thank you so much. And thank you for coming out tonight. And as HP said, Rochelle kept coming to me, Commissioner. And thank you for moving it to a weeknight. I have a 7-year-old, like I'm an old new mother, so I'm old in terms of numbers, but young in terms of being a mother. So Sundays are a little tricky for me. So I kept saying, can we please try to get it, like it's easier for me to sneak away on a weeknight. And Rochelle, who I turn to, her children are older, so they can take care of themselves. So thank you very much. All that to say is thank you very much for coming out on a weeknight. And thank you for having food. And let me just tell you, Rochelle has put me on this diet that basically anything that's good, I cannot eat. So the smell right now just is lovely. But I mean, we can't eat bread. We can't have anything with gluten. We can't have, it's just anything that you think of that's good, we can't have it. So my willpower is low. So I said, don't get me here when the food is out, because I don't guarantee that I'm not going to eat. And so that's why we just came, and then I can still smell it, and it smells so good. But thank you so much, and thanks Rochelle for being on point. And when, like her notes here, which are hilarious, when you read them, I said, that's our presentation. Okay, we could say thank you and good night. So thank you both for arranging this. Of course, we are fortunate, both Rochelle and I are based out of New York City, which is where the executive staff is, and we have 12 offices around the state. The regional director for this area is with us tonight, and that's Victor. Victor, will you stand up? Victor is the regional director, and I thank you very much for coming tonight and supporting us. Because what I think is important in terms of these discussions, and that's what I look at them as, is discussions, is that not only am I going to tell you about what we cover, I want to hear from you and let you know that we have someone literally here on the ground in Albany who's here tonight that can take your concerns, your comments, even show you or tell you, walk you through, give you the number on how to file a complaint if, after what we speak to tonight, rises to a level that you're like, aha. And I want us to walk out of here with ahas. And by that I mean, I want us to think, oh, I hadn't thought of that. Because, you know, as a person of a color, I know that, you know, someone says, like, all you black people are alike, all you Asian people, like, we're all alike, but we're not alike at all. We have differences, and our differences are important to us, and they need to be respected. My father's from the state of Alabama, my mother's from Bermuda. You don't ever want to tell my mother, call her like a West Indian, because Bermuda is not in the West Indies. So her thing is like, I want you to respect who I am and where I'm from. And that is the same way with like that kind of all you Asians. It's not that. And not only is it disrespectful, it shows your ignorance. And so what's very important about tonight for me is we have been going around the state making sure that we talk to any group that invites us. And when I say know your rights, It's more so know what we are here to do. Because I appreciate your honesty. When I got called to become the commissioner of the Division of Human Rights, crickets. You hear that? I was just like, okay. And I considered myself a fairly well-educated person in terms of politics, human rights, civil rights, and I didn't know a lot. And so when I got here, got to the division, once we kind of did housekeeping and, get the house in order, I said, we've got to go out and bring the information to the people that need it. So part of what we do in terms of know your rights is just letting you know we're here. And it is not your job to figure out if you've been discriminated against. It's your job to just contact us and file a complaint. We have investigators that are experienced, and they can do the investigation. So I'm gonna backtrack, and I want it to be interactive. So while I don't even like to hear myself talk, but while I can talk and do it very well, we can have a conversation. But as a side note, Rochelle and I do not dress alike normally. We are dressed alike because today the statewide is acknowledging and recognizing Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And purple is the color. So our office, we took a picture and everyone in our purple. So before we drove to Albany, we went by the office to take a picture, and thus the black pants and the matching shirts. But trust me, we don't usually do this. And I just feel like I need to explain so that if pictures are taken, we don't do this. And we dress alike on the Domestic Violence Awareness Day and at the State Fair in Syracuse. Those are the two times, the only two times that we all have on our purple. So, as we go along. So, what came out of, or what we noticed after the presidential elections in 2016, we saw across the state an increase in bias, hate, and discriminatory behavior. And it was almost as if coming out of the elections, people felt empowered to act upon things that I think in the past they would only talk about at a dinner table or in like-minded people. And so the governor charged many organizations, but especially the New York State Division of Human Rights and the state police to address it. And address it through the 800 number, which is the hotline. And at the division, we laughed because that has always been our hotline number. But after the 2016 presidential election, it was launched as the hotline number. But we needed to get the message out that there are places that you can turn. And while we are a civil organization, meaning we don't cover crimes, criminal crimes, we cover discrimination, acts of discrimination. We will work with the state police to get the information, if it's in a criminal way, to where it needs to go. So as HP mentioned, at the division, we cover employment, public accommodations, and housing. I wish that I could tell you in my 5 years, I've seen a decrease. I wish I could say many of the things that I heard of my parents, especially my dad, who is 94, thank God, doing well, but growing up in the state of Alabama, many of the things that I heard him speak about as commissioner when I am reading to sign final orders, I'm seeing it again. So, in employment, age discrimination. Those of us that are older are not, we're seeing an increase in age discrimination. Pregnancy-related discrimination. Of course, race discrimination, where you're hearing employers calling someone derogatory terms, you know, UN, or you, just things that still shock your conscience to read. It is happening. And what I realized when I became commissioner is that if this small number is reporting, then imagine the ones that don't know we're here. It's a larger forum. It's a larger group that we're missing. And so what I asked people to do was to spend time listening. Because when people come to us, be it drop in the office or send in a complaint, it is at the point where they feel this is what they have to do. Either they feel desperate or they feel, I have no other option. And I'll be honest, many cases aren't discrimination. If, like, I'm just a bad boss, like I'm just an idiot as a boss. And me being an idiot as a boss doesn't mean that I've engaged in discrimination. Doesn't mean that you are a protected class and I have, by my behavior, targeted that protected class. But what it does mean, which I think is equally as important, is that myself, me as the employee, the individual, I have a story to tell. And I need someone to listen. And part of our job as the division is to listen, is to pay attention, is to hear people say, this is what happened to me. And for those of us who are put on the sideline or marginalized or are not given a voice or are told we don't speak the language or we don't speak it well and are dismissed, many of us want to be heard. And I made a point when I went around the state and talked with everyone at our individual offices was, let's make sure we're listening to people. And so from that kind of came what I call our listening tours. We went around the state. We have 12 offices around the state. So Victor, who's here, covers what we call the Albany-Binghamton area. And in that, it's all the counties in between. And, you know, we have an office in Buffalo, Syracuse, Rochester. That's it for up north, right?
Yes.
Yes. And then we have Westchester, and then, of course, the city and things like that. And I am going to have Rochelle later come up and do, like, to do this, like the nitty gritty. What I think we need to make sure gets out is that we are here. We, the division, are here. It is not your job to substantiate discrimination. It's not your job to figure it out. That's our job. And the governor was very clear in charging me as commissioner, but the other commissioners, that basically we need to get out into the community and we need to start contacting those organizations in those communities that are so often left behind. And I think I cannot emphasize that enough, that sometimes very much if you look like any of us in this room, we are dismissed, or we are grouped as them, those people. You know,
Race discrimination.
the dismissive words, yes, the stereotypes. And I also think that oftentimes we are pitted against each other, which is unfortunate. But my charge is that we understand what is covered. So I'm gonna pull out my cheat sheet because I don't always remember, but I'm gonna remember. Wait, this is my thing. What I do with it, Rochelle? Oh, okay. You missed it. Oh. Okay, so underemployment. This is when you could tell my age. I went to the doctor, the eye doctor, and I said, you know, I'm having trouble seeing. And he said, are you 40? And I was like, excuse me? Your mother never told you you don't ask a woman's weight or her age? You know, and he said, you're either 40 or going to be 40. And you know, I was like, I think I'm aged. You know, I was a little insulted. And so he said, no, it's not like skin treatment. Your eyes go. And he said, as soon as you came in and told me what the problem was, I knew your age. And thus the glasses, I can't hide it. But I have to tell you, I looked at him like, now, next you're going to ask me my weight and my age. You know, like, you don't do that. Anyway, so our major areas of cover of what the division covers is employment, public accommodation, and housing. In housing, the bulk of what we are seeing in terms of complaints has to do with disability rights. And our director of disability rights is amazing. He's just amazing, and not because he's with the division, but he really knows what he's doing. And when I say disabilities, it's a situation, it can be something as simple as not having adequate handicap parking to needing to build a ramp. There was a housing case we had in a development in New York City, and they had to build a ramp. But they built the pitch of the ramp such that it was almost like a skateboard park. Clearly not according to the ADA. And literally, we had the authority as the agency to fine them as well as make them do the corrective measures. Because that's important. So housing, employment, disability, public accommodations. The protected classes under employment are, and I'm looking at you, Victor, for when you're like, okay, side note, we did a forum in Rochester, and it was on housing, and I was giving examples, and the newspaper quoted me as saying dogs were a protected class. And it was very, like, yes, laugh, because dogs aren't a protected class. And if you know our general counsel, she's been there, this is her, she's like, she goes back to Governor Abrams? No. The governor before any of us in this room were alive. So she goes back and has dry humor, and she's like, Commissioner, you cannot create protected classes without legislative approval. So, I am not creating protective classes today. I am telling you the ones that have been approved. Underemployment, we have race, color, national origin, creed, sex, age, disability. Retaliation for discriminating against any of those, and then I bring it to your attention and you retaliate against me. sexual orientation, marital status, favorable resolved arrest records. And this is very important because often, especially as we head up to the midterm elections, we are often told in terms of voting rights that you have none. And in terms of arrest records, the little box, once you say either I have been, that you are automatically excluded from employment. That is absolutely incorrect. Youthful offender status, a sealed record, conviction record, military status, domestic violence, which is very important, especially in this month. If I am a victim of domestic violence and I have to take off to either go to court or you have to make provisions, so for example, if I was a front desk receptionist and I am a victim of domestic violence, obviously me being at the front desk poses some problems. I am protected. That is a protected class once I am a victim of domestic violence. And that can't be underestimated. There was a woman who is out of Texas, a black woman who started a domestic violence organization to support women of domestic violence, to help them create the financial ability to leave. The necessary, what I will say, underground support. And she was literally just taken off life support 2 weeks ago after her boyfriend beat her to death. And she had orders of protection. Things that should have protected her from that type of demise. And she was forward thinking in creating this organization. So domestic violence status is not to be dismissed. It's very important, especially as we are in this month. It occurs more than we think, and it's not an indication of class, race, to some extent gender. It's across the board. So that is protected under employment. And under housing, we have race, color, national origin, creed, sex, age, disability, sexual orientation, marital status, military status, and familiar status. And so you hear this, we have flyers here in both Korean and Mandarin. We have other languages available. Please reach out to Rochelle, because if you go to our website, you can actually print them out in other languages, or we can make sure you get them. So those are the classes. But what I want to say to you is that, for example, immigration status is not a protected class. That is not for you to figure out. Because I keep going back to let us do the investigation. Because you might say, oh, my immigration status is why I'm being discriminated against. And since you don't cover it, I don't have a case. What I'm saying to you is you bring it to us, let me investigate it, because it could come under national origin. Or you might think it's immigration status, but as we do the research, we find out, in fact, it is race or it is age. That is why it is important for you to walk away tonight understanding that even if we don't cover it, we're going to find and direct you or your constituents to where they need to be. We will connect you with the proper state organization. The hotline, which again wasn't a hotline for us, was always our number, but when it got publicity, we got people calling about their taxes, the neighbor's dog keeps pooping on my lawn, all those, and we had to answer them. So I'm sorry, this is what you need to do about the dog's poop. This is where you need to go for taxes. Many things in terms of housing, and if we're going to buy a house, and we know that is kind of, and it has always been the pinnacle of the American dream, being able to buy a house. What we found was brokers were still steering people. So HP and I go to look at a house. They see HP and they're like, I've got the house neighborhood for you. And then I come along as maybe HP's wife and we throw everything off because the perfect neighborhood for him is no longer the perfect neighborhood for me as his black wife or his wife of color. What we were able to do in addressing these issues is target brokers who were still steering people, saying, you as an Asian need to go in this community. You as a black need to go to this community. You as a Korean need to go here, and you as, someone from Bangladesh need to go here. And they don't say it like that. They'll say, oh, I have the perfect house for you. I know the neighborhood you will be most comfortable in. What we were able to do was then start hitting those brokers. And how do we hit them? With the Secretary of State and their licensing, being able to be licensed as a broker. Now it is on hold because you are engaging in discriminatory behavior. You are steering people to neighborhoods. The apartment that was not available when I called is now available when HP calls. And the apartment that wasn't available for both myself and HP is available for Victor. And the apartment that's not available for the three of us was available for Rochelle because she has no kids. Those are the things that we are able to address. So while we don't have jurisdiction, so to speak, over the brokers, you know what? We have a sister agency that does. And that's what's important. That's what the point of being here tonight is, to get the information, bring it back to your different constituencies and saying, you don't have to figure it out. That's what they are for. We have situations where we have gone to the Department of Labor because it is in fact a labor issue, or the Department of, help me. No, the Department of State definitely, but I'm thinking.
DCR?
No, I'm gonna get it, hold on. No, because education, that's a good one, hold on to education. Oh my goodness. Wait. No, wait. Don't talk yet. Unemployment. Okay, so, oh my gosh, thank you. So that situations where, unemployment, when unemployment benefits are either been denied and things like that, it may not be our jurisdiction, but we can work with our sister agencies. I could not, thank you, I knew what I was talking about. We have partnerships with the Department of Health because one of the areas that we cover, that John, our disability, Director of Disability Rights, is excellent on, is that we are seeing people discriminated against because of their HIV/AIDS status. We are seeing in the Department of Education, while we do not have jurisdiction over public education anymore, we have been very involved with private education and the ability to address sexual assaults on campus. And to the extent, not the criminal aspect of it, but to the extent that the behavior is discriminatory. What we're seeing in terms of employment, remember well, you may not remember, but interns weren't covered. Now interns are covered. You cannot sexually harass an intern because what happened was, they're not an employee, they're an intern. but they still have the coverage. What we are seeing now, what has come out of this last budget, is we are expanding what our sexual harassment legislation looks like. And while DOL, Department of Labor, is charged with doing what I'm saying, the in-service in terms of letting the public know, it works directly with the division because that is something we cover. So I've gone over pretty much everything. And again, I don't want to just talk to you. I want us to engage. I see you. Let's have questions. Let's see how we can direct this, what you need. And again, if something clicks that you're like, you know what, I think I've been discriminated against, or I want more information, make sure to talk to Victor. So your question, and introduce yourself. And